Hello, happy Friday. Good morning and good evening to everyone joining. Good to see y'all. See some familiar
Hi, how
faces
are
and
you?
some new ones.
Thank you.
Doing really well. Yeah, doing fantastic. I'm excited to start this kind of new series. For people who watched a few of the streams, the interface might be a bit different. Leveraging StreamYard this time to allow it eventually up to maybe like even 8 or 10 people on one of these. I've kind of started thinking about this a few months back and wanting to start doing kind of a quarterly discussion, roundtable, kind of conversational piece, especially around the core visuals stuff that keeps getting released because there's so many new features that are going to continuously kind of be in development, that get released, that get updated. And I thought this would be a great way to kind of help involve the community a bit more with the stuff that you've been doing, Miguel, especially now with the release of the core visuals board, which came out November. And like, the emphasis on how cool it is it goes with the glasses. September. Yeah. I love the glasses, by the way. It's the absolute, like, you got the jacket, the glasses.
Hey, people have to recognize he's the boss.
Like a board.
Exactly,
well,
yeah.
It's super sunny. I can barely open my eyes with the sun that is in here.
Oh, no,
So
yeah, I get it. He's living the best life. He's working off of a balcony down in Mexico on a sunny day. Like that's living your best life, 100%. But what I'll do is I'll help play the MC for each of these. Definitely the view, amazing, right? Just quickly, what's the temperature out of curiosity?
Well, right here
for you, yeah.
Like I believe 27, no, 20 degrees Celsius.
Okay, that's
no idea how much is that.
So
that is in Fahrenheit.
It's like 6 degrees Fahrenheit.
That'd be like high 60s. Enough that it probably want a jacket on.
Fresh.
Yep.
Not too cold, not too hot.
Exactly. But one thing that I'll be mindful of is there might be a couple seconds delay between what I say and what you hear, so I'll make sure to leave a little bit of a pause just to try not to talk over you too much. But otherwise, just for people tuning in logistically, the goal of this is to do this about once a quarter. There will be a rotating amount of people coming in, either from the community, so individuals like Injae, any of the other people in the core visuals team. So that could be Kurt Bueller, Kerry Kolasko. The list can go on and on of people that can come in on this. But I try to have between four to 8 people, some mixture of community, MVP, and otherwise, some mixture of Miguel and others from Microsoft and the team to kind of discuss the internals and timelines and things like that. But it's really just to essentially recap what's come in the last 3 months, and then also chat a bit about visions and everything, and then what will be coming out in the next quarter as well, and do that a few times a year. So that's pretty much the goal of this, is a rotating collection of individuals just to chat about this, and it's a fun way to mix it up a bit on some new and novel live streams for me versus just a single guest. But otherwise, with that being said and some of the logistics laid out, I'll kind of just go in order of the screen. So Miguel, I'll hand it off to you if you want to give a brief introduction on yourself and who you are in regards to the core visuals team.
Of course, I am the PM of core visuals, and my role is to help engineers, designers, to make sure that we have a clear roadmap and vision of what we are going to do with our data visualization in Power BI, always looking at what our community is requesting.
Excellent, thank you. And let's go to Andre, lower left.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm engineer on Power BI. I've been engineer on Power BI for like almost 20 years, and I was mostly working on the client features. Through my years, I learned a lot of features that you're all probably using, like bookmarks, hierarchical splicers, like report refresh, page tooltips, and like many like M parameters, visual calcs. So I've been working on a lot of features, and I have a lot of insights on some of those things. Yeah, but otherwise, nice to be here. I mean, I'm always glad to speak with this community and get a feedback, because a lot of things that we're building, they're very like, there's a lot of ways to do things, and we are trying to get as much feedback from community as possible to make the right decisions and right choices. Thank you.
And I want to give you
He's the engineer for.
Sorry, go ahead, Miguel.
Oh, he's the lead engineer for slicers. So he's the star that is always behind everything that is coming up with the button slicer, the lead slicer, text slicer. He's the one that reviews that work. He's the one that comes up with ideas and solutions on how to make them work. So he's our star in that area.
And not slicers specifically, but filters overall, like the whole filter pipeline. How do we gather filters? How do filters apply? How do interactions work? Like there's a lot of details to filters, like group on keys. I mean, not a lot of people probably using it. It's one thing for like where you have like keys and like, so there's a lot of details to the filters that are not visible for the public eye, but they are pretty essential to make the right decisions and to make the things work.
And I want to give you a special shout out as well. One, you when looking to add people with this, you were very willing to join kind of last minute, and I appreciate you for coming on for this. And I know this is kind of one of your first live streams that you've done, so thank you so much for coming on and joining from that. And on the topic even of kind of your expertise and wheelhouse of filter interaction and slicers, I know you mentioned as we were getting ready for the stream that you were very interested in just community conversations and feedback. So for the people in the chat, as we go through a lot of this today, candid feedback for this is also very good, because part of the benefit I think of this is collecting a bit of the community voice. So feel free to throw questions at any of the four of us, or on any of the things that we're kind of talking about in general, and it's something that we can collect. So just as I mentioned to that. But that being said as well, then I'll pass it to you, Injae, as well, to give an intro.
Hi everyone, my name is Injae. I'm a Microsoft MVP from Poland, and I'm basically just the person who uses the stuff that Miguel and Andre make. So that's kind of my role in this live stream, and I'm really excited to be here. Honestly, every single thing that Andre's worked on, I have probably used to death, from the slicers to the bookmarks to doing this to doing that. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about what's being released and what's maybe a little bit about what's coming next.
Exactly. And I already see a couple questions, and I think what I'll generally do is just as I mentioned, for people who are either new or returning to the stream, try to start them with the queue if you can. The pin chat talks about that. It helps me just track them a bit better. And what I'll do is, if they're relevant to anything that's very topical to what we're actively discussing, I'll figure ways to interject and bring them up on the screen to discuss. You are also welcome to drop more general open-ended questions in there. I try to I queue those up and then throw them into the end of the stream, where we have a broader Q&A where we can talk about kind of a grab bag all of those discussions as well. And with that, though, I think we can start the conversations a bit about like what's essentially come out in the last 4 months. And I know a few of us have a kind of the vision board up, and again, Miguel, awesome job for you and your team to get that out. I know it had been talked about for at least a year plus before it was released, on like the idea of the vision of the vision board, so to speak. But it is a really, really cool like one-stop shop of both showcasing not only the features. It's almost like its own fourth wall. It uses a lot of the new features that it shows the timelines for. So it's a both and, which is a fun concept, I think, to use the product that you are demonstrating the timelines of inside of the tool itself. But if you were ready to kind of talk about the releases in the last quarter, I can share your screen and we can go from there.
Yeah, well, in the last quarter, what we have launched was the enhancements on the new car visual. Especially, we were doing some work on the small multiples. Let me. I'm gonna stop presenting, and then I'll show you. I'll tell you first before sharing my screen. I'll tell you first what we have launched, and then I can show you what we're going to do even for this coming month. So we were focusing on the new car visual. So we did enhancements on the small multiples. However, we realized that it was not fully dynamic. So people were trying to use conditional formatting and then make each small multiple to respond properly with conditional format, and that didn't work. So That's what we are doing this coming month. Like we are continuing refining and fixing small multiples. Something else that we were doing in the previous months is slicer work. So we added the selection icon, so now you can manipulate that in the button slicer. Before you were not able to do that, as well in some enhancements and ways to allow the list slicer to show the labels and show images, and as well allowing the list slicer to respond more properly with conditional formatting. So as you can see, our in the last 4 months, 3 months, we are focusing on the list button slicer and the car visual, especially on small multiples. Something else that we are doing this month in the March release
Sorry,
is
Miguel. Text
continue
slicer. Text
help
slicer.
in improving.
Text slicer is
Oh, the text slicer. Yeah, the text slicer as well. Look, thank you, Andre. So we did the enhancements and we launched the text slicer, so then people can use this feature. And again, you can see we are really trying our best to move from the old slicer to a set of new slicers that will allow the users to have more freedom and more control over the style and the filtering experiences. This coming month, we are going to focus. I'm going to try to first open some documents so then I can show you really quickly what is coming and the enhancements we are doing for as well line shapes and markers and data visualizations. Just give me a sec.
No worries.
Is anything that I'm forgetting, Andre?
No, not really. I think there's. I mean, I can answer the question regarding images and new sliders. We already have a newly slicer releasing like image support for the hierarchies. And for SVGs, I think there was a minor issue where just whenever you insert SVG from like measure, it didn't properly render, it just ignored it. So I think I fixed it, but I want to understand more what kind of SVG you're dynamically using, because there was a minor issue, but I think. I mean, it might be not released yet, but I know that there was a problem and we fixed it.
Yeah, because that was actually, I don't know if that was the question that you were seeing that was overwritten there, but there was hope for enabling SVGs, measure-based images in the new slicer experience in the future.
Yes, that's specifically the question. Yeah, because when the measure returns an SVG, you want a dynamic image, dynamic SVG, maybe with some text or some custom things. So it's a common scenario, and I think that should work for already. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So now, so let me share my screen now, and I'm going to show you what is coming this in the March release. I hope you can see my screen by now.
Yep.
All right. So one thing that we want to do is, that we are launching actually, is these enhancements for reference lines. Before, for example, when we added a reference line, you were only able to see or to get the shade area below, but never you were never able to control if it was above or in any other place. Like for example, never being able to put the shade area in the back. So if you have a line chart and you want to have your reference label in the shade area at the back, it was not possible. It was always moving the shade area at the front. So we were aiming to fix and add more controls. So now you're going to be able to use these enhancements in multiple places, not only for columns and I'm sorry, not only for area or line charts, but as well columns, waterfalls, scatter charts, and other Cartesians. And as well, you're going to be able to use that for combo charts. And we did as well enhancements for the vertical lines as well. So you're going to be able to make as well more flexible experiences for reference lines in general. The other one is the new core visual. As I said, let me increase this a little bit more. You're going to move, you're going to have two ways to style your small multiples. You can use this tabular form, where this is what we have always offered from the beginning when we launched small multiples, where you can see a grid system where there is like these kind of lines dividing sections of each small multiple. And now you're going to be able to separate them in some kind of card style. So imagine that you're going to have multiple cars with multiple small multiples, and all of them looking like cards. So you need to be very careful how you use it, so then it looks right for your report. But now you can separate each small multiple. By the way, we are not going to call small multiple anymore. We're going to call those ones categories. So each of these categories are going to be together in a grid system or a table style, or you can separate them into a card style. Something else we are going to do, or we're going to launch, is you're going to be able to move the header from left to right or from top to bottom. In the past, you were only able to have it at the left side or at the top. So we do understand that there are certain regions in the world that they read from right to left, and we want to accommodate those scenarios as well. So now the headers will go to you can move it to the right. But as well, if maybe in some circumstances you might want to have it at the bottom, so you can as well move those ones to the bottom. The other one is we are going to offer, and this is going to continue progressing in other visualizations, but this is the first time in Core Visuals that we are going to implement these orientations, text orientations, which it will allow you to rotate the text to 270 degrees, to keep it horizontal, rotate it to 90 degrees, or stacked. So stacked means we can see the S, then below the O, the U below, and like it will be like how can I explain that? Like, well, each letter will stack on top of each other. You can see how this works in Office right now, where we use PowerPoint, and you go to text options. You're gonna see the same 4 options there, and you can see what they do. This is exactly, we're borrowing that idea and putting it into Power BI, because we realize that small multiples having these 4 options can be a very powerful option for you to use. And as you can see, this is taking less space from your small multiple than this one, right?
Yep, exactly.
As well, as I said before, we are going to ensure that the condition formatting works. Before, it wasn't working. You were having something here in the reference label, and you were expecting the color to change according to each of these categories, but it didn't react properly. So now it's going to work. I can add formatting for my labels, values, callouts, reference labels, detail values, even the header, color header in my small multiple or category title, and everything will respond with conditional formatting. I know I received so many complaints and requests that we should fix this. Finally, this is coming in March.
Oh, I'm so glad that's being fixed. I think I might have sent you like 10 or something, like complaints about the conditional formatting not working.
Right? Yeah, it was just ridiculous. But we were trying to move as fast as we can. One thing that we receive a feedback that people want to try features, even though they are not complete. But later on, other people or another set of people are saying, no, I do not want to try anything until it's completely done, because I feel that this is incomplete. So what our team is going to start doing this year is we're going to now take in consideration the other people that are saying that they do not want to see incomplete features. So we're going to try our best to pack it in huge amount of properties or options. And then once they feel complete, then we're going to launch it. So then you can play it in a much robust and complete manner. That means from now on, certain features in Core Visuals will take a little bit longer than before, because we are not going to do it in fractions anymore, but we will deliver something in a much mature state.
And just a quick question to both of you on conditional formatting, because this popped up from Data Junkie. They just wanted to know whether there will be conditional formatting in any capacity to essentially be able to bold text.
Not right now. In the future, once we are able to prioritize more conditional formatting properties, we're aiming to start allowing other controls to provide conditional formatting support. And it's not just for font style, but as well drop downs or toggles or any other controls that you see in formatting to have that FX control at some point. But we know that this is something we want to do, but we still need to work on the infrastructure.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
The
Thank
other
you.
one, this
Keep
is
in mind
the
some-
part that I'm going to-
some drawbacks, like as you're using, the more using conditional formatting, the slower the visual becomes, because you're getting more and more data based on some other data, like more and more setting based on other data. So whenever you design reports, keep in mind that consideration. Like conditional formatting, they're cool and nice, but I mean, excessive conditional formatting can slow your report. So, and that's one thing to keep in mind, specifically for people who design reports. Especially
Yep, absolutely. It requires a query to be ran. Same thing with like a tooltip. Like the more data you add into a visual that needs to be calculated, the slower it can get, even if it's not visible. 100%.
So I actually had an experience where I was doing a lot of different conditional formatting for one visual, for the new cards visual, but I had like a whole bunch of different, metrics that I was showing. I think it was like 12 different metrics. And I actually ran into the upper limit. Did you know that Power BI sets a limit of 100 separate queries to run in for one visual at a time? So I actually
wow.
could not conditionally format all of the things at the same time. So, but also it was just kind of like something that I was trying. It actually didn't make sense to do it in this way because the performance was terrible to do 100 queries. So, it's one of the like trade-offs that you really have to think about. If you're going to do that much conditional formatting, then maybe it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Was that before or after it had small multiples, out of curiosity?
Okay, so that was before small multiples, because you may remember Miguel released like the new cards. When the new cards released, there was a report that he released as well that kind of showcased how it looks like and how it works, and I was kind of using that as a base to create like 14 different things. But I was creating conditional formatting, it's like DAX measures for the details, for the it's like titles, for the colors and the fonts, it's like, and so that was like 8 measures per metric. So it's like that was too much. It was just stress testing.
It's actually interesting.
Exactly.
Because condition formatting for the visual doesn't run separate queries. It's all part of the same query. So I'm kind of curious to see how you end up with 100 queries, because if you try performance analyzer and you add a lot of conditional formatting, you will still see single query, and you can then open it in a DAX editor, and you can see like all the measures that you use. And like actually performance analyzer, guys, if you're not using that tool, that's a perfect tool. You can even see the DAX and then made a small changes to the DAX and see what the result will be. But I'm curious to see your example, because condition formatting don't add more queries. I mean,
so I can actually tell you that the reason that I reached this, it's like upper limit of 100 queries, was because I was using DAX to register hex codes. So I was using the conditional formatting as a field value, and that was separating all of the conditional formatting into different queries. And I actually did go back and put that conditional formatting into, it's like the regular, like the UI interface. And that actually solved some of the issues. But, lesson learned, I did not know that was a thing. So 100 limits, 100 DAX measures, guys, that's the limit.
Fun to try to break things sometimes.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's good. That's good. Well, it's as well something that everybody needs to be aware of. Once we add more condition formatting in the future, we just need to be careful that to do not overdo it. Only use it where necessary. All right.
And it also helps to have the small multiples. So like that was pre small multiple days or categories. Now it's like that, it's not 8 times 16 anymore. In his scenario, that would just be 8, and then the 16 is potentially the categories that you'd have. So it would subdivide automatically. So hopefully that never gets hit by anybody at any point in the future, unless they are very intentionally trying to break the system.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the other one feature that we are really, really, really excited, I think a lot of people are going to really love it, is styles. Style presets. For those ones that really like to use JSON files, when you use the JSON, let me show you there. So here, so in the JSON file, you're going to be able to add another sentence where you can define styles, and then in each style you can name them and then put below all the properties that you want to define. Once you create that theme file, you're gonna be able, when you open to see that particular style ready for you. each of these styles that you select will change your visualization in whatever options you have defined. So for example, you can create a column chart that is good for highlighting the last dates or the last week, or like some particular style presets that are good for that individual analysis. Maybe in that one you want to see a ribbon, maybe you want to remove it and move the legend from one side to another side, etc. So you can come up with those styles and keep them ready in your report to use. So as you can see here, the preset has this style, the number one, while the number two, I move the legend to the right side. And for the third one, I think we had some kind of lines here, like the green lines with different color. However, it's very important to know that if you have that style selected, then you move to another JSON that won't have that style in the JSON file predefined, then you're gonna end up with some errors in your report. So it's very important that if you do this in your entire organization and you have come up with different preset styles for your car visual, for your Cartesians, for tables, etc., that JSON is well shared across the organization, so everybody can use them and not break reports later on. So that's the kind of stuff that we are being focusing on core visuals for the last 4 months. As you can see, again, we continue with enhancements on the lines, shapes, and markers, and we are trying as well to continue moving on with slicers, and we are trying our best to bring you more styles.
What will be the best
You
way
can
out of
control
curiosity?
the look and feel of your reports.
So for the style presets, and I know you're mentioning JSON files, and like one of the comments in the chat is just like a lot of people don't even probably never explored JSON files yet for that. Will there be any kind of an interface, or do you expect like community tools to maybe kind of show up that will help people configure the style presets that are going to get baked into it, or is that something that will eventually also come natively? And similar to like the theme configuration tool that's built in, will there be an option to maybe add or configure style presets at all for cards?
Yeah, that's another of the roadmap features we have in our core visuals vision board. It's all about improving the interface for theme, where you're going to be able to define all those settings and even styles right in Power BI, instead relying to other technologies or your people hard coding them in a file through a JSON file. But it's not really sure when we're going to start doing that work. We have like higher priority features, but once we are there, we're going to inform the community how this is going to work, and you're going to be able to do all that directly in Power BI. We hope.
See, I feel like with a lot of stuff, it's one of those where the feature will be available in the code. Community tools will support probably something like that first, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Power BI tips theme generator that Mike Carlos maintains pretty actively. I'm sure at some point in the near future, if themes support the ability to have card presets, I'm sure his interface will soon be close behind on giving people the option to configure it in his theme generator tool, and then eventually come in natively for stuff like that. But
Yeah,
I still like the idea of that. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying, yeah, I hope so. The at some point, like Mike Carlo and team come up with a way to put that in their platform, and I believe Alper, who is the genius behind all these styles, can do that. Like I believe he's collaborating with Mike to make sure that he's informed and he can support styles as well.
Now, a follow-up with that is, will there be a similar to how the matrix table has those preset themes, and some of them are nice, some of them I think are, people have various opinions on them, but either way, there are native themes available for like the tables. Would there be a preset set of like 5 or 6 card designs that come out of the box to like give people ideas, and then they could add their own, or is it going to be just empty unless you add custom ones from the JSON?
if you do not have any preset style in the JSON code, that dropdown won't exist. So you won't see it. It will appear only
Okay.
once the JSON detects a style. Eventually, what we are planning to do as well is we want to come up with new styles for the new car visual, for the button slicer, list slicer, and then people can really quickly go and make their cars or slices much better. One thing that we are getting from the community is just to make the car visual look nice, it's taking forever for users with not much experience, or even with people with experience. So we want to use this feature eventually to provide nice default preset styles too.
Okay, so it'll be a both and one. The menu won't show up for that. The only thing I might just make as a last comment on this, and maybe a suggestion, is when menus are hidden, it makes it nearly impossible for people to find. It's still a feedback that I give today on the visual header tooltip. You have to go to the icon list, you have to turn it on, and then you get the menu for the visual header tooltip. And because it's auto hidden, so many people don't even know it exists because it's invisible. So I would wonder maybe as instead of completely hiding the option for presets, if there's nothing that exists there, you still show it, but it's grayed out. And then there's maybe like a note that this needs to be added via custom themes or something, just to encourage curiosity and development. Because it never find it unless they come across a blog post or they view a video like the way I have here. And did my video freeze?
Yeah, I think your video's frozen, Reed.
Yeah, let's see. Stop cam.
Okay.
Start.
Hey,
Yeah. Well,
Reed, do
you can
mind
talk.
sharing
about
my
it. Go
screen
ahead.
for a sec?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, because
While you're doing that, I'll
okay,
fix
so
my
can
camera.
everyone see this? Yeah, okay, I can see myself. So this is actually something from Oscar Martinez Valero. He's like a really cool guy that I met in Switzerland. And this is generally just what a theme can do. It's a JSON file, but you basically just apply it and it'll change the look and feel of all of your visuals, right? And the problem right now that we're trying to solve with, it's like this feature is that it's going to allow you to decide how you want different visuals to look right in the actual report. So I will say as a counterpoint, Reed, that it's like it might be a little bit hard to find, but once this actually like releases, you're gonna see. At least I'm going to drop 100 videos on this for sure, and like other people as well will for sure be incredibly
Yep.
like all over this. The idea of being able to it's like take one visual and just change it into something else basically immediately is amazing. It's going to be so good. I'm very, very happy that this is dropping.
There we go.
Yeah, and this is one thing that we discussed even for our list slicer default theme. Like we wanted to have at that time, we didn't have default style presets because we want to have that people can have the same look and feel that I have for old slicer that can easily switch, and at the same time we can have like a different layout or style that is kind of better for the new slicers or maybe less items you have.
Yeah.
That will open up us to have multiple defaults because it's hard to come up with default that will work for everyone. So I think that style dropdown is supposed to solve this problem where we can have multiple defaults for different purposes, and then the users can easily switch from one default to other default based on their needs and what the requirements for the report they have.
I think it's also like so Kurt Bueller has this amazing article, I think from Data Goblins, about atomic design, the ability to reuse different, it's like visuals and concepts in different reports so that you don't have to build everything from scratch. And I think this is going to be one of the biggest enablers of that because
Yep.
I spent way too much time formatting reports, and I get a lot of, it's like good feedback from clients because, they like when the report looks better, of course. But I spend a lot of time doing that, and this will make it a lot easier.
I would agree. And like a couple of things on like custom theme files is if people have not built them out in any capacity, they are a huge time saver when you put the time and effort into it. And again, I'm going to go back to just my Carl's theme generator, but I spent hours going through all the stuff that I consider practices, like slicers, header turned off by default, certain attributes for like, I like rounded corners, like all these little things that like, if you go through and you're repeating these patterns over and over again, avoiding having to use the format painter or missing something, like I have hyper configured my like perfect theme file that has, a couple of extra icons that are available for KPI icons and tables. as soon as we start getting the features for the options for card templates, I will be using those. But the ability to have things out of the box where all of your visuals look a certain way goes a really long way. Like last year, Miguel, when you added the option to add a bit of transparency to the bars, but with a matching color border, so you had that very faint outline on some of those, like all those little design tweaks and beautifications that that can be tedious and take a lot of time. Baking those into a completed custom JSON file through whatever tool you use to build it is really useful. I will say though, quite a few of mine broke in the last couple of months when the desktop hardening, some releases came in. So the files that worked in December now don't validate because there's a few things inside of the theme code that I think passed through inspections that technically wasn't valid before. A few apply all things that I've had to go through few and tweak. So for people familiar with using those, I'm sure a couple of individuals have probably had a few minor things break, but at least it tells you now what's wrong with your custom code. But the benefits massively outweigh the cost, I think, when it comes to a time saver, and applying that universal standard that you can use for yourself or for your org or your team that keeps everything looking and feeling a certain way when it comes to the aesthetics of reports. And there are a few questions spun up.
Unless really
go ahead.
Sure.
Was there anything?
It's a really powerful.
Okay. Exactly. And to Miguel or Andre, I have a few questions spun up. Do you have anything specific you'd want to talk about, or otherwise I can bring up some of those that I have in the queue if that works for you?
Let's try to go over some of those questions, and then we can talk about what's coming this semester, the features that Andres already working on, and some ideas and explorations we are doing. And we would like to hear your opinion on some of those.
Okay, yeah, let's do that then. We'll go through these, clear out the queue a little bit, and then go back to some of the other stuff that you just mentioned. So this one I think was already somewhat answered a bit on the grand vision of FFX buttons everywhere, but the question is from work stuff. Will all visuals, anywhere there is a color choice, be allowed to be changed via either DAX and or an FFX button in the future?
Yeah, we are planning to do that as well. Our new work to make the new core visual, for example, GA and the button slicer, it's already looking towards making sure that everywhere where we support color, well, at least 90% of the places where we support color, we already support the FX button. There are some areas where color might not be ideal to apply condition formatting. We are evaluating those ones, but the new features we are already touching and making sure that they will become GA. They will have to go through a complete support on FX.
The one thing that I'd be curious about is just with some of I forget the exact context, but there is something in my brain that I remember talking to Jay or somebody else about where certain conditional formats related to identifying colors, like a hierarchy level or a few others, you can potentially end up with a circular feedback where this is based off of that, but if that's based off of this is based off you can almost break a visual because you can make things dependent on each other, but that it's a chicken and egg scenario of which is going to change first to modify the other one with some of those. So I know from a coding perspective, it's not only yes, we can turn it on or off, but what does that do to dependencies in the visual if too many things are enabled to dynamically change? That I remember hearing from a technical perspective that I hadn't thought of it, but it clicked in my head of that kind of makes sense with a few of those.
Yeah, that's why we cannot support them everywhere. There are only certain scenarios where we could, because we could potentially damage the visualization if things are wrongly applied.
And I think
I can maybe
go ahead.
I can elaborate more on that, because first thing we did raw hierarchies for conditional formatting for slicers, for the list slicers. They will be released soon, so you'll be able to change the color and the label or the image for every specific level you want. So we kind of solved that problem in a way. We still want to do it for pivot table kind of in general, because this is kind of feature that people are missing in pivot tables for a while. But I think the main problem is conditional formatting colors overall is you can have the colors on very different levels with very different grouping. And the main problem is make sure that the conditional, the DAX measure that you're evaluating for that level is possible to evaluate for that specific grouping. For example, just for the small multiples, because you want to change color just for the small multiples. And small multiples is a simple case because it's the highest level in the hierarchy. But there might be some cases where like that conditional formatting measure in a like on a grouping that's really hard to evaluate without running separate queries. And I don't have any good example in my mind right now. Maybe like column hierarchy, but it's like in that case it's really hard to add a support for conditional formatting. But for the hierarchies, to your question, we can add support for conditional formatting, at least for the row hierarchies that we already do for hierarchical slicer, fully slicer. We already did it. So yeah, hopefully you'll see more soon for more support for conditional formatting colors. And we know that this is a problem, and we are actually working on that.
And speaking of filters, I'll pass one question off to you, Andres. There is from work stuff. Would it be possible to allow a developer to add divider lines to the filter pane to help organize?
It's all possible. It's not mainly probably question to me. It's probably a question to Miguel. But this is kind of a bigger question here, because there's a lot of so much details to the filters. Because like, do you need filter pane overall? Okay, what filter pane allows you to do today is a visual level filters. You can create visual level filters, but by creating slicer and setting up relationship to affect just that visual. And like, do you wanna more filter pane features, or do you wanna more possibility with using slices to create custom filter panes, as people do right now? Like, you create those pop-up collapse filter panes with custom slicers with a lot of formatting properties, because filter pane is very limited. I mean, in page level filters, you can create page level filters with slicers and sync slicers. So like, what is it? Because people do like sync slicers, and then you click one slice, it applies to, it's kind of act as a page filter in a way. Though, so and this is the an interesting question. And overall, like, where should we put our effort? Should it be like in development? And again, Miguel probably can answer better than I to that question, but. It's possible, but again, like, should we prioritize it, or should we do something else? And this is kind of a nice question overall. And I can't easily give an answer to that. Yeah, we can do that. I mean, the answer to that, we can do that, and it's up to Miguel to prioritize the work.
Okay, I'm gonna hijack this because we're talking about, it's like filters and slicers. When are we getting ragged hierarchies?
Good question.
All right, so let me answer both of those questions. So the first one is about the filter pane. As you can see, sometimes engineers struggle on what is exactly what we should do. Should we invest in slicers, or should we do in filters? Because it's an important question to answer. What I said to our engineers is, and this is where my mindset is based on feedback from customers, and like, as a heavy user in Power BI, with I use Power BI still, thank God. Slicers is a very strategic way to see them work on first, because we can at some point use all the technology, the rationality, and some of the stuff that we're doing for slicers to eventually later on go and improve the filter pane. The filter pane, in my opinion, is a more powerful place to place your it's a powerful surface to place your filters, but we do not use it. We do not take advantage of this area fully because there are multiple limitations. With slicers, you can define what particular visualizations you can filter and which ones you don't want to filter. You can define which pages do you want the filter to interact in another page, and not entirely the whole report. Well, while filter cards do not allow you to do that. You only have 3 levels: filtering that particular visualization, filtering the entire page report, or filtering all pages. And that's not what slicers do. Slicers are more flexible. Slicers have a better way to allow the users to filter their data. For example, the slider, it has this amazing thing that you can move, or the date slicer you can select from a calendar. When you use the filter cards, they are very old. They do not feel friendly. So the idea is, first, let's get in focus on slicers, which already are flexible enough to allow us to do a lot of stuff. And then if this is powerful enough, we move everything into the filter pane and bring all that flexibility there. Eventually, it will be very hard for you to choose between slicers and filters because they will do the same. At this moment, there is a huge gap between them. Now, regarding the divider lines, once we get into that stage of moving all this technology from slicers to the filter cards and improving the filter pane, then we're going to add multiple functionalities. That divider lines will be a very weak feature. We want to do something more like allowing you to have a group of slicers. You can name them, you can color them and treat them differently. You can collapse them, expand them. So then it's much easier to identify the kind of slicers that you're looking for in a filter pane with a lot of slicers. On the question Injae asked was about
Ragged
what was that about,
hierarchies.
Injae? I forgot. Right hierarchies. Right hierarchies is something we want to do for slicers as well. We want to make sure when you filter, you can see things in a racked manner, but we want to add it in the table. At this moment, we are investigating. I think at some point I'm going to send a request to the community to see who are those users that deal with rack hierarchy needs every single day in their jobs. And I want to understand every situation and every scenario that we need to make sure that we support. So then the list slicer and eventually the metrics and table, the metrics visual can borrow that information and have that support as well. We were thinking to make the rack hierarchy support part of the GA work for the list slicer, but it's going to take longer. And we really want to make the list slicer GA as soon as possible. So that will become post-GA.
Yeah, and I understand the other thing that slicers.
That was a long answer.
Yeah, and I understand that slicers currently have certain limitations, like, for example, measure filters. You can't have measure filter in a slicer where you can have a specific grouping and a specific product. Also, top-end filter is not supported by the slicer. But that's a question, like, should we improve filter pane or just make a slicers? And the whole experience with interactions, it's probably not ideal, far from ideal, like where you have to select and then click on every visual, like, and I've been already explored these possibilities, and Miguel as well, like do it to selection pane that it can get easier to choose the interaction between the visuals. But I think I agree to the point with Miguel that I think improving slicers and then improving filter pane is kind of a general path forward.
And I would just one last comment on that, because I know like any of these topics we could easily spend like an hour on is I think that the thing that is I'm hoping with some of you guys, like custom visuals in a way can probably help show you where certain people are desiring certain features. And a lot of these things that I'm hearing in terms of the ragged hierarchies and all this other stuff, or like measure driven slicer defaults, stuff like that. Thankfully, we have things in the community that serve not only as stopgaps until they come out through the core visuals team, but also like certain things that get popular, hopefully give you guys a bit of a pulse of like, oh, this is clearly something that the community loves to see. So then, it might encourage us and give us additional fuel to put these out. But as I mentioned just a little bit ago, as some of these things are rolling out, I think there are some custom visual slicers that are nice, useful stopgaps that have a few of these today, like the super filter and a few others, until we get these things supported natively, which they're coming down the pipeline with.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and we do want to have some delighters for our community. Andre is really good at identifying those ones. Actually, he is exploring a feature called copy paste for slicers, where you can just go to Excel or somewhere else, copy a whole list of items, go to your filter, paste them, and then they will be selected. I think Andrew can talk more about his ideas and how much we are exploring about this feature, but we are aiming to provide this kind of functionalities as soon as possible.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like copying of some of the custom visuals features. Yeah, and that's what we usually do. Like if you want to like make sure that users have a feature like some other custom visuals features in our visual, But here's the problem. Like we need to make it better. Like basically we can't take directly what custom visual does, because sometimes it doesn't work in all the cases. Sometimes it doesn't handle all the situations. So we need to explore all the details. Like, and actually, quick question: if somebody actually set in these long filters for slicers, one question we had that was really like, we had some debate on that. Like, is for hierarchy filters. Do you ever want this copy paste to create a hierarchy filter with selected, unselected nodes at the same time? Because what we were exploring, for example, you copy 2 columns values from Excel, and then we can treat blanks as that you selected parent. For example, you have in the column 1 categories and column 2 products. You, for example, have an empty space for the category. That means when you copy that the whole category is selected. Or even more, like we can consider that if after that you have for that category some item present, then we treat that item as unselected. So basically just one copy paste, you can insert the whole hierarchy filter. But again, the problem is that, like, does anybody needs that, or just people want to select items that don't want that complex hierarchy filters with copy paste? And it's just one example of where we have a lot of debate on what should feature support, what users want, and based on what users want, we make certain decisions. So if anybody has any feedback on that experience, like, do they ever want to copy hierarchy, I'll be glad to hear about it.
So I think I can, give at least my point of view, which is that I would personally, in all of my time in working with Power BI, have never used a feature even if that existed, because for something that granular, like let's say you have multiple different hierarchies, like a region, sub-region, and then a country or something like that, for example. And let's say I wanted to select a certain number of countries. It would be amazing if I could just select the countries, or one level, and I think that would be more than sufficient for me. But in a situation where I had a very specific number of different things, then I needed to go and look at that often, I would probably just put that into a bookmark or something, or maybe create like some kind of separate category for that very specifically. But at the same time, I could see that if you were doing something like an audit and you had to, very specifically look at this combination of things, then, if you're having an exploratory, session with your report, maybe that would be useful. But I feel like the use case is quite narrow and limited for, that level of, control over copy and paste. But, that's my point of view. So,
And Andrea, if you wanted to respond to that, I want to give you just an opportunity to do that. But otherwise, I think this is a good moment to kind of adjacently bring up a question regarding like filter options, and then a thought/comment on me. I didn't know if you wanted to respond to Injae though before I brought that up. All right, I'll go ahead and bring up the question then. So from Alexandra, she wanted to know if there's a plan slicer feature to limit the set number of values. Currently, there's only single or multiple, but an option to select exactly 2. So basically, multi-select with a maximum allowed is how I'm interpreting that.
Yeah,
I like that idea. Yeah.
That we discussed during copy paste, and I even mentioned that probably, and I've seen that where people actually say, I don't want like some people said force selection, and they don't even want that force selection to be overridden by the bookmarks because their report is suffering dramatically because of that performance issues if you don't have single items selected. And yeah, we discussed it. Here are the things that you should and we discussed it even during copy paste feature, like what should be the limit? Like, should we allow the user to set the limit? Probably we will do it sooner or later. But one thing to keep in mind, I guess it's just a kind of, we can't change existing filters, so it should be kind of some new option that you set, and then you need to force, and you need to consider a lot of different ways you can set the filter. Like if the user has a saved bookmark for that slicer, like do we just ignore that bookmark if you have that option present? So yeah, but that's something that we definitely discussed from time to time. And I myself actually advocated for this feature because I thought, okay, people specifically because of the performance issues that report has, if you put a certain amount of items selected for that category, like they don't want to allow that to happen. So that's why this limitation is very useful. And even for selection today, for example, they don't allow you to use hierarchy. It doesn't allow you to select just one item, because you can select top level and then it selects multiple items. So yeah, great feature.
There is a progress that we're doing towards that side, and Andrew just developed that. When we were dealing with hierarchy slicers, I mentioned the need to have only one single option selected. You are not able to define I only want 2 or 3 or 4. No. At this moment, we added only one. So when you have hierarchy slicers, the mindset and the feedback that we got from our community was sometimes you're using hierarchy slicers for field parameters. So you have these hierarchies, and then when you go into the lower level, then each of those ones will trigger a field parameter value. Having a option when you have single select, you single select one of the parents, the higher levels, automatically you're selecting multiple items, even if it's single select. With hierarchy slicers.
Yeah.
Now, with the feature that he implemented, you're not going to be able to select the higher levels. You need to expand them, go to the lowest level, and then only one single item can be selected, which will allow you to have a very powerful option to use field parameters with hierarchy slicer. Now, allowing users to do the same kind of stuff with a single one, forcing one single item to then select 2, 3, or 4. What we would like to know is, what are the scenarios that you're trying to get by saying I want only 2 options to be selected, or 3 or 4. So that'll be something that we would like to hear, so then we can support something like that. At least right now, I believe, Andre, we're aiming to do this in April, in the April release, to allow this single selection.
It's not
option.
It's not actual single selection.
Yeah.
I want to correct a little bit. You still can multi-select, but you can't click on a higher level. So you can only click on the lowest level enabled. And some problems with that, with like force selection and this feature. For example, force selection will not work with this feature. Why? Because the way hierarchy slicer works, whenever you open it, like for example, if it's a drop-down slicer, for drop-down slicer, we don't allow load data at all unless you expand it. For the hierarchy slicer, we don't load all the levels until you expand it. So implementing force selection, meaning that we will have to load like all the levels to make sure that we can force select one item that is available for the user. So that's where like this why we currently, based on the current design, we can't really reliably support it. But that's the thing that we kind of looking for, like what is the best way to make it work, because then we know people really want this feature.
To quickly summarize that, it sounds like, I mean, it's essentially where you have a hierarchy structure with only the ability to click at the lowest level, because I don't need the upper levels to select. I want those to organize my list, like date as an example.
Yes.
I don't need 500 date values to scroll through. I want to be able to go to the year, the quarter, month, whatever it is, and then yes, I can pick my single dates, but now I can find it through a natural tree structure. I don't want to select the parents though. That is. I definitely wanted that more than once, where it's like, I don't ever want to click these upper levels, but I have to because there's no option to turn them off. So that will be really nice to have from a UI perspective.
That's correct.
Yeah, and you will be able to show, and you will be able to show them. It's like a weird.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay, Miguel, you go.
Yeah, I go. So something else I want to clarify on what we were talking about, the hierarchy as well, with the copy paste that Injae said. Sometimes he doesn't find anything useful. So let me share my screen and show you what we were trying to do here. Let me go to the screen. Okay, I hope you can.
And you need to present again. I think you stopped sharing. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
I hope you can see my screen. So I'm going to use I'm going to use the core visuals vision board database that we have, and this is our hierarchy, right? So we have the milestone, we have the category, and each of these categories have multiple features. So, and this is each feature. So we have a hierarchy here in these 3 columns. So maybe these are my cells. So what I can do is I can come here and say, hey, everything that is 2 million, that we reach more than $2 million, then I can go and select my columns and then copy this, go to my hierarchy slicer, paste them, and then I will know exactly the information that I will see selected for each of those hierarchies. So it will know that it will select the filter slicers in the slicer and the text slicer. So something like that. What Andre was presenting to us that he wanted feedback from the community is sometimes might happen that this particular feature is blank. So you have all these options, but this in particular has a blank value. But that blank value for the feature has $2 million, for example. So when you copy paste, we will find and select whatever matches the milestone, the category, and the feature blank. Then we will select that blank option. In his idea is if we treat this blank differently, we can use it for non-selection. So when you copy paste this option, then we will know that this is a non-selection and we will not select it. So now we're adding another layer of what is the way to select and non-select. So when you copy paste, you can give the instructions of both of them. At this moment, in the way that we are aiming at just like treating blank as a blank value, everything is selection, and we will select blanks as well. If we treat the blanks differently, then we will allow you to have select and non-select. I hope that clarifies the situation about copying and paste a hierarchy values.
Yeah, the context helps. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was something else completely. I was like, if it's blank, then you select the entire category or something like that. That's what I was thinking. But
yes,
this actually makes perfect sense.
That was
Mm-hmm.
No, that was correct. So we discussed that option. So if that blanks that you select a parent hierarchy, or you just select a blank value, basically you have a blank value. But like we discussed both of those options, and for now we decided to go with what Miguel showed. Basically, we're selecting blank. And but other option I just asked, do you find it useful? And you said that probably it's not that useful because in your experience you just want to select one. You just want to basically everything selected that you copy. You don't want to have those mixed select and select things. And it's again, as I'm saying, it's a valuable feedback.
So to clarify, it's like being able to select if the it's like the blank value selects it's like nulls or rejects it's like the selection is still really useful because of the ragged hierarchy it's like structure. So really excited to see what you guys are going to do with it.
Onwards and upwards with a lot of that stuff. Let's see. Miguel, I know you mentioned that there was some future roadmap stuff you wanted to discuss. I have a couple questions left, but I think we can maybe pause on those if you wanted to talk at all about any remaining things as we're getting close to the end of the stream at all.
Yeah, of course. The new core visual, we're going to add a new section. So let me again share my screen. Just give me a sec. Because I think it's much easier to show you than trying to explain it. Let me go to the Figma and hope you can see.
Yep.
All right. So the new core visual has this new way to show, like we have the callout area, and the callout area has an image, the value, and the label. So we are going to call this callout area. Then we have the reference label area where we have the title, value, and detail. So that this section is going to be called reference label area. And then we're going to add something that right now we're calling it hero image. And the reason we're calling it like that is because this image will then be called, callout image, and this one will become just called image. This image will allow you to render an image in this whole space. You can import that image, you can use your URL image, and you can make your cards, or even you can even do not use anything and then use just the image. Remember that we have a custom visual that allows you to render images. So you can use this feature to have that kind of support. Like have an image that you can import in Power BI, and then you can use the categories or small multiples to then see multiple images. So you're gonna have a lot of options in there. But one important aspect of it is because we see that the community is using this callout image to render trends, to render charts using SVG charts. And that's why if we have a whole section of this image, you can render that image in a more like larger area, and you can render your charts in here as well, and you can still have your own image for your callout. So then you can have a logo or something that represents the value that you want to see without sacrificing it and using it to render a chart. So this area will be able for you to use a chart. That will allow us to do not stop the car GA, and we will continue making a GA. And then later on, we will work like slowly. We will work on having a particular section so you can render a chart. At some point, you're going to end up with three sections. You're going to end in the future, in a long future, you're going to be able to have a chart, a car visual that will have 4 sections: the callout area, the image area, the reference label, and then the trend line area that we in the future we will support. But again, while we get there, we will make sure to give you that area, and then you might have to use SVG for now. So that's one thing. Another thing that we are trying to do, and I think you're gonna see a bunch of settings. We're still trying to define them. Is while we get the new car visual, the button slicer, and the list slicer GA, we are going to rearrange all the formatting settings in a way that makes more sense for users to find them, to identify what they do, and to customize them without going back and forth and trying to figure out what's going on in here. So that work will require to make a bunch of changes in the way that you see them. I'll show you in a moment once this loads. Something else that we're trying to do while this loads. Oh, so this is the image and the trend I was talking about. But then this is something else we are going to do. And this is, again, it's not just the car visual. The button slicer and the list slicer will go through this. So a lot of the settings in the way that we have them now, they're going to change their location, names, and as well options that we're going to show. So here's no many, but here you can see. For example, I'll give you an example. In the callout area for the car visual, we have horizontal alignment under values. We have the vertical the align base in the label, and then we have the vertical alignment in the layout. That's gonna change. We're gonna make it more like friendlier. And now in the value, you're gonna see horizontal alignment, the baseline option, and the vertical alignment all together in one section. Instead, you going into 3 different areas to try to align your values. This is this is just an like an example of many more where you're gonna see this new orientation and changes. Again, aiming to make much comfortable for you to create those additions, changing the labels, making sure that everything works as expected. So we're gonna go through a bunch of bug fixes, and again, this is going to affect the car visual and the button slicer. We're going to continue doing explorations for copy paste in the new slicer. We're going to introduce the drop mode. So now you're going to have a drop mode for the button slicer, for the list slicer, and the text slicer, I believe, is not going to have it because it is already integrated in the regular mode. So only the button slicer and the list slicer will have a drop mode. We're going to introduce copy paste in the search experience for the 3 slicers, for the button slicer, list slicer, and text slicer. And we're going to as well improve the search experience. So now it's going to be much easier and intuitive to go through the search option in the slicers and then look for what you want to select. A lot of experiences there in the slicers. Again, we really want to get the car visual full GA, and we're going to make sure that the text slicer and the button slicer at least reach GA, and then if we can, at the end of the semester, which means August, September, October, we are going to do the same thing for the list slicer, and then we will continue making explorations. At the end of the June, August, or September, we're going to start working on the numeric slicer and the calendar slicer. With that, we're going to finally be able to get a lot of the slicer work in our core visual vision board already under development. I hope that works.
I'm trying to imagine, like, if you were to take like printer tape or ticker tape and just put end to end every single filter pane option that's eventually going to come, like how long would that roll of paper be? It's just the it's an interesting thought to have, just because of all the customizations you're eventually adding to this. I'm sure it's got to be a very nuanced decision making process to figure out how to give so many things to click and configure, in a UI that's manageable and not exhaustive to like have to try to find stuff.
That's correct. Well, we are trying to do that. There is another work in progress. I believe our designer side already came up with a solution to only keep in the format pane the most generic features, an option where you can expand the advanced options. So we are not going to end up overwhelming our users. That's very important. So then we keep things light. But at the same time, we need to make sure that there is enough control, not only for us as a report users, but Copilot will require all these settings and controls to provide better responses and better design approaches if we want Copilot to be more efficient. So it's a balance there. We know that if we do not do this work with the format pane, at the end, it's going to hurt us, all of us, because it's going to be so difficult to go through each setting and try to apply styles in a proper manner, and it will take so much time.
I would agree. I'd say, like, I've seen a lot of other, again, like custom visuals do a hybrid approach where they use a bit of the filter pane, but then they use a lot of like on visual menus and other stuff to provide some more for that, because there's only so much you could put in a vertical list like that, versus if you have a square or full screen visual, you have a lot more flexibility and options for that stuff. Let's see. As we're getting close to time here, if I have a couple of questions left that I can still bring up and ask, so let's bring up a couple of these, and then I want to open it up to any of you as well for any remaining topics we want to discuss to finish up the day. But let me pop this one up here. So the question is, it's been a while since there's been any like header or header icon improvements. Will you be able to come back and sprinkle a bit of modern magic dust over any of the header for visuals?
We were so close. We were so close to start that work, but for other reasons, it was stopped. But yes, the visual headers is something very critical for us to fix as soon as possible. We just need to find first engineers that are open to work on that, because we already are overwhelmed with a lot of requests and features that we need to deliver. But we do have a clear vision for the header icons. One thing that we want to do is to first provide a better customization. Second, we want to include them inside of the containers header where the title and subtitle are, so then people can see them. One important thing that we are receiving from users is that the visual headers as they are, by hovering over and then seeing them only when that happens, is not an efficient way to allow users to discover certain features or capabilities like drill mode or sorting of properties, or like alerts. Like there are multiple options that they only appear when you go into the three dots, then open a menu, then you go and explore the drill through as well. Like it's not intuitive. So people are asking, can we move or can we choose some of those header icons to be part of the header, always visible, so then the user can see, hey, I can use drill through here. I can use drill mode. I can like even you can add other icons and attach bookmarks. So when the user clicks on that visual header in your title, you can switch the visual to something else. And instead adding more and more buttons and adding more and more performance problems. So there is a huge opportunity. We are aware of it. All we are requiring is having the right resources and engineers ready to do that work.
Yeah.
It's our non-stop problem we have in the core visuals. There's so much we need to do, and we know how to do it, but we have a limited amount of engineers and designers.
Too many features, not enough time. Yep. I totally get it. I think, yeah, as we're getting up, I'll open it up to any of you. Are there any remaining topics or questions you either want to post to us or the chat at all as we're kind of winding down and finishing up the stream?
So I'm just gonna take this opportunity to say I am so excited for that card stuff because most people know me for the stuff that I do with SVGs on LinkedIn. So I'm like, once that drops, I'm gonna be so happy.
I'm sure you like. I think a few others there, like Daniel Marsh, Patrick, Kerry Kolasco. I'm sure I'm maybe Kurt Breeler. I'm just thinking of people who have a lot of SVG templates and really, really like those. Like I can imagine you're going to get excited on like I have a new spot to go crazy on like designing fun little like mini charts and KPIs and all this other stuff. Because yeah, you produce a lot of really cool stuff. And didn't you win some kind of like Power BI contest recently? I thought, or no?
Oh yeah. So I actually am going to go to it's like FabCon Vegas because I am a finalist for the Power BI World Championships. But the interesting thing is that I actually put in 3 different reports, one for each week, and all of them use SVGs in some capacity. So it's like that was really nice for me.
Excellent. All right. Anything else, either from you, Miguel or Andre, to finish up? Otherwise, once we're done, I think I'll pop one more last question in, and then we can use that to finish up. All right, so let's do that then. Where was it? So it was not directly posed as a question, but I do think this is something that I've asked before, and it's been brought up as well from Muhammad Ali, who's the product manager for Power BI Desktop. But it would be nice to have an option to show the same in desktop as the service. This is regarding header icons, and I'll translate this to meaning that like there are certain configurations that you can't observe until you're in reader mode in the Power BI service. And I swear it was 2 years ago now that like Muhammad Ali was on one of my streams talking about this, that like desktop would eventually get a reader mode preview so you could observe changes that you make in desktop. So that's the layering effects and visual header configurations, which you can't see. I'd like, do either of you, can you speak to like if and when something like that would be coming to desktop where you don't have to publish to like finalize changes and check on everything?
Well, I am not informed if that's like how is that moving forward. I am not the PM for that work, but I can like ask, see what is the status and plans about it, and then share with the community for sure.
That'd be awesome because it's one of those small caveats where we do have some tools that can audit and review like report features that may have been missed. But if you're not privy or familiar with those, there is still quite a literal manual. Like you make your visual configurations today in desktop and you have to publish it and then like wiggle your mouse around to make sure you didn't miss any icons that you wanted to turn off and stuff. So I think that was kind of what this was alluding to a little bit. But otherwise, I don't see any other questions that would be pertinent to this. So if there's no other insights or anything else from any of you, one thing that I would recommend, and I'm going to drop the link for this, is for those who haven't looked at it yet, check out the core visuals board here. I'm dropping the link to LinkedIn, which talks about it. And again, this is something that Miguel and his team put together. But this will always be the kind of the one-stop shop to go to see what's been released, what's coming, what's planned, anything related to anything that the core visuals team is doing. So continue to check that. But then otherwise, I want to thank all of you for coming on today. This has been absolutely fantastic. I love the discussions and water coolers mixed with sharing information on both what's been released and what's coming. And hopefully you got some good community feedback from the chat and us as well. And I'm excited to do this again in about another quarter.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Reid, a lot for organizing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Reid. This is always great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for taking times out of your morning, afternoon, and evening for this. And I'll see some of you next time. Have a great weekend as well.
Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.